The issue of mind control is the first topic which we will be examining in this series. Imam Ahmad al-Hassan alayhi salam has confirmed that thousands and thousands of human beings are currently under mind control without even knowing it. These individuals range from normal people just like you to celebrities in the entertainment industry, and go all the way up to presidents and prime ministers of countries. The topic of mind control is one of the most serious topics in this time. It is a topic which is very important to me, and I hope that you all take it seriously and educate yourselves and help raise awareness about this topic. Imagine a person who has his finger on a nuclear button which could destroy the world 1,000 times over, being under complete and total mind control. Controlled by an elite group of devil worshippers and pedophiles. Imagine the pure evil of a person having the ability to completely control another person's minds and thoughts and actions without the victim even knowing it. It is one of the darkest topics that you have ever heard of, and we are just scratching the surface. This is a topic which has been largely ignored, and for the first time in television history, here, on the black banners of the East Satellite Station, we will expose everything about this topic.
Mind sciences, or the study of human behavior in relation to the mind, is the newest of all the arts. It's less than 100 years old. And it is by far the one that is most cloaked in secrecy.
The origins of psychological warfare were in Nazi Germany, and in the Nazi ideology they had something that was called Weltanschauungskrieg, which means worldview warfare. The idea for them was imposing the Nazi worldview on the countries that they had occupied. The Americans picked up this idea, created an American version of it, and called that psychological warfare. In trying to understand psychological warfare and in trying to understand the American approach to the post-war efforts to control people's minds, both as individuals and on a mass scale, there's a lot of illusions about how that was done. Were Nazis involved in that process? Yes, they were.
Project Paperclip was a United States government-sanctioned CIA operation for the importation of Nazi and fascist scientists into the United States. Their statement was simply this: if we don't bring these people into this country and contain them, then our enemies, the Soviet Union, will get them. The first wave was to bring these scientists. There was 700 odd propulsion scientists, and then there were some 600 and some odd mind sciences people that they brought in. The CIA was given the responsibility of actually placing the individuals out of Project Paperclip into the military-industrial complex, including our colleges and universities. Mind control was a psychological warfare weapon that Adolf Hitler regarded as the answer for taking over the entire planet. The name for the mind control research in this country was MK Ultra.
MKUltra was one program of a series of programs that came out of the CIA to experiment with different types of mind control, using drugs, using electroshock, using insulin shock, and other techniques.
I think that the goal for those people who planned the program was very straightforward. It was an attempt to figure out a way to interrogate people and to learn how to protect their own agents against control by others. If you put someone in a position of being disabled by not feeding them or not allowing them to sleep or overwhelming them with sound, if you use massive shock treatment and you give people massive doses of drugs such as PCP or mescaline or amphetamines or LSD, and if you put them in periods of darkness where they can't predict from one minute to another what is going to happen next, so they're always dreading, there's no consistency to sort of what's going to happen, anybody can be put in a position of being open to brainwashing. Cameron was probably the foremost psychiatrist of his time in the 1950s. He was using high-tech sound techniques. He was using multiple kinds of loop recorders to force people to listen to recorded messages 24 hours a day for weeks on end to basically destroy people's thinking patterns.
The lysergic acid into the vein, and he patted me on the shoulder and said, "Now there, lassie, we'll see you later." And I started to feel very frightened, and the fright became a terror. And I sort of began throwing myself from one side of the room to the other. I didn't know what to do to stop this feeling. It felt like my bones were melting, that I just didn't know who I was anymore.
This is not just break-ins of people's homes. It's not just invasions of privacy by illegal wiretapping. This is an invasion of a person's mind. And that is about as profound an injury, except for loss of life, that the government can impose.
This was a post-Nazi program, if you will. It was an Americanization.
I've often made the statement, and I still make it flippantly. The Nazis didn't lose the war. They just had to move.
Now it's 50 years later. Now they're much more clever, much more sophisticated. They have a lot more money to spend.
Because of the compound's effect. Although his vision was not impaired, he found it difficult to focus his attention on the next objective. His physical actions were noticeably slower. He felt compelled to disobey his instructions.
Did Sergeant Ditches give you any instructions about what you were supposed to do tomorrow? Tomorrow? What, is today Thursday? Today's Thursday. Today's Thursday, Well...
Wars are not won on the battlefield. They're won in the minds of the people.
When I was really little, as far back as I can remember, I was sexually abused. And the sexual abuse went into child pornography. But as a little child, it was so natural to me to be in a sexual mode all the time that reaching out when I saw someone aroused was just a normal thing for me to do. My sexuality was never suppressed. I was never told that's wrong. I was never, it was encouraged. So I just grew up thinking that was the norm.
With the abuse that I went through, it was as though my spirit was removed from it, like it took flight. It was in a safe place. One that was actually in flow while my body was being directed by other people, and ended up, being involved in things I had no way I would have participated in. Stripped of my clothing. I was allowed to wear tennis shoes and told that I had to start and begin running before I would be hunted down. My exposure to it resulted in my believing I had no place to run and no place to hide. It seemed there were no limits to what could happen in my existence at that time. It was one of the most extreme situations I think I ever survived.
Greetings and salutations. Mark Phillips and Kathy O'Brien have been through a lot. Kathy has had some extraordinary experiences in the mind control program, and Mark came along and pulled her out of the situation. So without further ado, if you will please give a warm round of applause to Mark Phillips and Kathy O'Brien.
When I was a really young child growing up in Muskegon, Michigan, this would be the early 60s. I was born in 1957. My father had been sexually abusing me as far back as I can remember. And he often bragged of substituting his penis for my mother's nipple while I was an infant. So my sexuality was heightened from a very, very early age. And I also developed what is known as dissociative identity disorder. It was formerly termed multiple personality disorder, but has since been redefined because it's not multiple personalities, but the shattering of a personality and a compartmentalization of memory, of trauma, too horrible to comprehend. Childhood sexual abuse is certainly too horrible to comprehend. There was no place for that in my mind. This compartmentalization of memory was what the government was interested in, because they figured that if a person couldn't think to bring to mind abuse, they wouldn't be able to think to bring to mind government secrets, government perversions, or anything else they wanted compartmentalized in the brain. My experience as a mind control slave on a White House Pentagon level was extreme. I was totally robotic. I had no capacity to think for myself. I didn't have any free thought whatsoever. I didn't even have the ability to question, to reason, or consciously comprehend what I was involved in.
How do you feel being in Arkansas right now?
Nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
Why is that?
This place is dangerous. and I'm not too pleased with actually being here.
I don't know how many times we've been in situations where we weren't sure if we were going to make it through it.
I couldn't count.
I can't either. But this is definitely one of them. It's over the line.
One of the worst. Because when you start this process, this is what gets everybody killed, is the investigation process. And that's just not cool. We're in it, we're on the back of the tiger, and we can't get off. We've got to finish this.
What we got here, Stephen, is somebody who's top world-class businessman in his own business arena. This guy's not somebody you want to mess with. Now, he's been threatened many, many times. He's gotten into a couple of gunfights. I strongly urge you to think very carefully about your questions. And don't attempt to try to fool him by putting him on camera, except maybe in a silhouette or something.
Would you like to know a couple of things?
I want to know everything.
If you're looking for validation in terms of what Mark and Kathy have laid on the table, hey, is it real? Yeah, it's real. And when you consider that you have members of the judiciary, law enforcement, high-level place business people, politicians involved, you understand what I'm just saying to you? It's people who shape how you see the world, tell you what's important, what's not important. If you choose to take a deep look at it and do your own research, fine. You'll find out for yourself. Hope you're fast on your feet, and hope you're capable of dodging bullets, because you might run into something. These are serious people.
Every time I turned the proverbial corner, Stephen, I ran into stuff that was just totally 100% outside of my realm of experience and hence believability. I mean, it's bad enough to hear this stuff, but it's even worse to get it validated.
Kathy, you ready?
When I was 22 years old, my vaginal muscle, it was cut. And then once that happened where there was more movement with the muscle can actually protrude out the vaginal opening. And that was carved by somebody that was a very controlling person and was aware of the effects of trauma on the human mind.
They used an X-Acto knife to do that?
Yeah, it's a series of them. I didn't have any anesthesia, so I remember it very distinctly.
Is there a lot of bleeding?
It was so uncomfortable. I remember crawling into the bathroom and getting in the bathtub.
It seems to me like more of a ritualistic type of, a carving, and not just carving, but an actual face, something into there.
I see the part that sticks out. There's a little, it's like a really long nose. And then right above it are two eyes. And there's a mouth that smiles underneath it.
Mostly what was done was what is considered outside of the vagina, on the vulva. There were several incisions made, which made one flap of skin that looks like a nose, and slits were cut in to look like eyes, and even a mouth.
But after what you've been through, haven't you been through the worst of it, do you think?
Yeah. Well, I'm not afraid of anything except maybe not getting the word out if that can be construed as a fear.
Yeah,
and this word is getting out regardless. I mean, we've won. We won big.
This right here is dragon's breath. These are all armor-piercing, exploding shells. This thing would make an armored personnel carrier completely debilitated. You know, New York second, as they say.
And you keep it in your bedroom?
I keep it right beside my head, along with a 45 loaded with similar shells. Not that I'm paranoid, it's just that, you know, I'd like to squeeze one last one off if some idiot wants to come in here.
MK Ultra techniques became much more advanced, and mind control operations continued to operate in secret, and today the United States government has thousands of mind control slaves operating in every aspect of government and entertainment. We will take you through a very disturbing journey where you will see for yourself the proof of this grand conspiracy. In the entertainment industry, most celebrities are under mind control.
And it's a big culture of mind control too. MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood. If you don't know, Google that and look into it.
Well, we've talked about Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra mind control stuff from, I mean, this goes back decades and decades. But Roseanne, I mean, do you know people have been blacklisted? I mean, is it just kind of a self-censorship in Hollywood, or do people actually get edged out if they are too much against the grain?
Yeah, it's self-censorship after a while, but it's not just a crazy self-censorship. It's
and are used as spies and sex slaves. Each celebrity is assigned a handler, whom usually is the actor's manager. The handler holds the keys to their programming and is able to sell them off as sex slaves to the elite or use them as spies against foreign regimes.
Yes, but do you want to stay the night? You know, I really want to do some cuddling.
No, your time is up. I have to be with the Italian Prime Minister tomorrow.
Okay, Marouche, give the goodie bag.
Thanks.
I trust everything is in there as your manager requested.
Katy Perry said she got a diamond Rolex.
The case of the diamonds, the dictator, and the supermodel. When ABC News first confronted supermodel Naomi Campbell about a mysterious gift of diamonds, she denied the allegations. But today on the witness stand at the war crimes trial of former Liberian dictator Charles Taylor, Campbell told a very different story. Now she says the dictator's henchmen paid her a late-night visit, delivering a pouch of uncut, unpolished, precious stones. But were those stones so-called blood diamonds, the secret currency with which Taylor funded his reign of terror? Brian Ross investigates.
I solemnly swear on the Bible.
I solemnly swear on the Bible.
On the stand at the war crimes trial in The Hague today, supermodel Naomi Campbell appeared to be put out to be called as a witness.
This is a big inconvenience for me.
Campbell had initially refused to cooperate with prosecutors in their case against the former Liberian dictator Charles Taylor, and appeared today only because of a subpoena from the court forcing her testimony.
Are you a bit nervous?
No, well, I didn't really want to be here, so I was made to be here. So obviously I'm just like wanting to get this over with and get on with my life.
For prosecutors, Campbell's testimony is seen as crucial in a case that goes back over a decade, involving hundreds of thousands of people killed or maimed in a bloody civil war that Taylor is accused of fueling with what came to be called blood diamonds. As first reported by ABC News, witnesses said Campbell, on a trip to South Africa to the home of Nelson Mandela, had boasted of receiving a packet of diamonds from Taylor's representatives. But Campbell denied the allegations to ABC News earlier this year, before storming out of the interview.
You received a diamond from Charles.
I didn't receive a diamond, and I'm not going to speak about that. Thank you very much. And I'm not here for that.
Well, we've been told that you didn't help the prosecution sort of in this very important case.
Sorry. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
But what she told ABC News was a lie. She did receive diamonds from Taylor, as she acknowledged under oath today, describing a bizarre middle-of-the-night scene outside her bedroom.
Yeah. When I was sleeping, I had a knock at my door, and I opened my door, and two men were there and gave me a pouch and said, "A gift for you."
Did you ask them who they were?
No. I was extremely tired. When they gave me the pouch, I just put it next to my bed and went back to bed.
What did you think the stones were?
They were kind of dirty-looking pebbles. They were dirty, I don't know. When I'm used to seeing diamonds, I'm used to seeing diamonds shiny and in a box, you know. If someone hadn't said they were diamonds, I wouldn't have guessed right away that they were diamonds.
But witnesses, including actress and activist Mia Farrow, have given much different testimony. Farrow was there the next morning and says Campbell knew exactly what she had.
She said during the night, some men had knocked at her door, and it was representatives of President Charles Taylor, and that they had given her a huge diamond. And we're like, oh my gosh.
Taylor's representatives asked Campbell about testimony from witnesses, including one who claimed Campbell had been flirting with Taylor, something Campbell denied.
That's not true at all. As I said before, when I'm with Mr. Mandela, and I think everyone in the world feels the same way, my attention and focus is with him.
At the time, Taylor was at the center of international outrage over his alleged role in stoking the bloody Civil War.
While magazines and advertisements hold apparent messages for the general masses of people, they hold esoteric hidden messages that only the elite know and understand. So, for example, these photo shoots that might seem to the average person as just a little strange is actually an advertisement to the elite saying that this celebrity, this mind-controlled slave, is available for sex. You will find the birdcage always trapping the individual or their mind as a symbol and signal that they are under MK Ultra programming. The Monarch project is a mind control program developed by the CIA under Project MK Ultra. Monarch represents an important pillar of the New World Order. After the Illuminati saw some of their puppets slipping and exposing some truth, all important authorities and celebrities have been replaced by Monarch slaves. Those include moderators, musicians, politicians, actors, sportsmen, and more.
doing here?
I'm allowed to be anywhere I want, Poppy.
I'm sick and tired of your nonsense.
What nonsense? I thought we were friends.
You're always so mean to me.
Sometimes friends are mean to each other. Why are you wearing a birdcage on your head?
You can't be mean to me now that I have my birdcage.
That birdcage will not protect you.
This birdcage protects me.
That birdcage will not protect you.
This birdcage protects me from all of the bad words.
That birdcage will not protect you.
This birdcage protects me from the mean people.
That birdcage will not protect you.
This birdcage protects me from you, Charlotte.
What did you say to me?
Now get out of here. Scram!
I'm sorry. I was in a trance.
Yeah, what the...
In covertly recorded off-air transmissions from the Bush-Clinton presidential election campaign in the 1990s, we can see that Bill Clinton was nothing more than a puppet to the puppet masters which placed him in the White House. Bill Clinton's demeanor seems to be similar to a person who is under a hypnotic trance.
But it's been a heck of a ride, to be honest. I really can't complain. Yeah, I was kind of I was a little down. I found out I was injured and I had to have surgery again, or with another knee. But at the end of the day, I have amazing teammates. Guys like Draymond.
Leave room for the Holy Ghost. Anyway, there is a lot of memories today, actually. It's a big day in music history.
35 years ago today, Elvis Presley passed away, the king of rock and roll. And as Mark Cohn says in his great song, Walking in Memphis, there's a pretty little thing waiting for the king down.
While mass media has largely ignored this issue, over 2 million Americans have undergone the horrors of this program.
As a citizen of Canada, I demand that President Clinton mandate a presidential inquiry of mind control experimentation. My name is Lynn Moss Sharman. I was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia in 1947. I was subjected to mind control experimentation during the Cold War era in the 1950s, primarily in upstate New York. My name is Mary. I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1948. Throughout my childhood, I was subjected to child abuse in the form of experimentation. As a citizen of the United States, I demand that there be an investigation into this matter, because it needs to stop. It hurt me and it did terrible damage to my life and the lives of other people in my family.
My name is Claudia Mullen, and as a citizen of the United States of America, I demand that the President of the United States appoint an advisory committee to look into mind control projects that were done by the government during the years of between 1950 until now. I was a victim of mind control from New Orleans, Louisiana, but I was taken to several places. And I've already given testimony in front of the Presidential Advisory Committee on radiation and have already submitted documentation. And I would urge strongly that they form another committee as soon as possible, focusing just on mind control, especially since it was done to children, innocent children. And we have to find out how it happened and make sure that it never happens again. Thank you.
My name is Bryce Taylor, and I would like to ask
the President if that it's time now that people in America and all over the world become more aware of the many thousands, if not larger numbers of victims of people that have been used in mind control experimentation, as well as being used within our own government and other governments as operatives that have been under mind control, used as a slave labor force without their own knowledge or awareness. My name is Bryce Taylor, and I personally was used for many years until I had an accident and began recovering memory of the ways that I was used within our governments and abroad. I would like to call for an investigation. I think it's time that the people's rights stop being violated. Our very constitutional rights in this country, for many people that have been abused and used and experimented on, have gone unchecked, and it's time for this population of people to be heard and for the truth to emerge. The truth is going to set us all free, and it's time that that happens now. I have a book that I've written in regard to this, and I've interviewed other survivors all over the country who have had similar experiences as I have, and so I'd like to call for an investigation of this whole process and let the truth be known. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Lewis, and I'm from London, Ontario. For 15 years I was a high school teacher until I began to remember what had happened, and I too, like many other people, are now on disability and have had to give up that career. I was raised in the small town of Fort Erie, Ontario, and my family was involved in the medical community and the Masonic community and in the military, and same things have happened to me that I'm sure that you've heard have happened to many other people. I barely survive the amount of pain from headaches in my temples. And I would like an explanation of why this happened, and I want the government to stop what's happening because it's still happening, and to recognize the terrible damage that's been done to us, and that you have changed our lives in so many terrible ways, and I want it to end, and I want an explanation.
I respectfully demand, as a citizen of the United States of America, that President Clinton reopen an inquiry into mind control and radiation experiments. I was born in 1954 in Kentucky. I was used in radiation and mind control experimentation in the 1960s.
My name is Susan Benson, and I was born in 1955. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. As a citizen and as a child, I was subjected to mind control experimentation that is continuing today. And as a citizen of the United States, I demand that a presidential inquiry and a commission is set up to expose and uncover this past and current day experimentation. My experiences with this occurred in the Detroit, Michigan area from 1959 to approximately 1969. And this needs to stop. Thank you.
My name is Chuck Davenport. I was born and raised in the Saginaw Bay area of Michigan. And I was in the military for 7 years, 1974 through 1981, mostly overseas. And I would like to see the President conduct hearings on mind control experiments in the United States. I'm a citizen of the United States, and I made this request because of what happened to me what I experienced and what I witnessed and what I know to be true. And as a citizen of the United States, I would demand that this be done. And I see no excuse for it not being done. Thank you.
My name is Kathleen Sullivan. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm a mind control survivor, governmental, CIA, NASA, several other organizations. There's also a lot of mob connections in my experience. I was used starting in Reading, Pennsylvania, where I was born in 1955 at Reading Hospital. I have been used for about 30 straight years by the government and their mob affiliates. I am now integrating and I'm finally free, but there's a lot of other survivors out there who are still struggling, some of whom are dying with suicide programming. There are children who are still being abused and used as human slaves, especially for pedophiles. And I beg y'all please to help us get this brought before Congress and to see that these human slavery atrocities are stopped. Thank you.
To President Clinton, I have survived ritual, abuse, and mind control from the government. I demand an investigation in order to stop this.
Okay. Hello, I'm Ted Gunderson, former Senior Special Agent in Charge, FBI, Los Angeles. I have with me today my dear friend, Bryce Taylor. Bryce, you and I had an interview some time ago, very formal interview, in that it was, like as I recall, 2.5 hours long. And we're going to update it today, so it'll be rather short. Let me ask you a few questions. Today, for the first time, and this is February 22nd, I think it is, 1998, you name names. Before today, you refrained from naming names. Would you like to tell us who was involved in these various activities that you've described before?
Yes, I would, Ted. It's real scary for me, but I'd like to go on public record saying that my owner under mind control was Bob Hope, and that I was abused and used as a mind control sex slave by Ronald Reagan and a lot of different presidents, LBJ, Reagan, Ford, and I was programmed to have computerized mind files by Henry Kissinger, where I was used as an operative within the intelligence faction of the government, targeting people that he and Nelson Rockefeller had an agenda to bring in certain individuals into the fold, they called it, to work on behalf of the New World Order. And so they used me to manipulate and blackmail people in order to bring them in, people that were either wealthy, had a lot of talent, or knew something, had connections or whatever.
Or money.
Money. It always, the money was the end goal of everything.
And what were you asked to do?
I was sent in usually with very detailed programming instructions where I was drugged and electroshocked and food and sleep deprived in order for them to lay in programming that would be specifically targeted to a certain individual, and I would be, it would depend on what the profile of the person was, but I was usually sent in with instructions to seduce a person and then to deliver a whole regime of instructions or information that they had programmed me to deliver.
So you were used for blackmail purposes?
And to keep the people that were working with the New World Order agenda organized.
And now we went into detail last time about how you had your photographic memory, and you could read a series of documents and memorized it, and they could call on you and say what happened on what was on page 395, and you can come forth.
Right. Actually, Henry Kissinger took me sent me into the National Archives and different places in Washington, D.C., where I was instructed to go in and have perfect photographic memory. So instead of like reading and memorizing, it was just that I was programmed to be able to photograph with my mind different documents so that anything that they would need at any time would be available to them.
Did they ever expose you to any psychiatric examinations of any sort?
Actually, I was being monitored at UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute in Los Angeles, and Dr. Jolyon West was involved with this. They did a lot of mind control programming there, and I reported there at different times when I was told to for my programming to be either updated or reinforced or whatever. My father also had brain surgery at UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute when I was 16, and after he recovered what he was able to recover from that, he knelt down on the floor at my bedside when I was 16 and said, "Honey, I've lost control of you. Big things are happening and I'm really sorry, but there's nothing I can do to help you."
Because if he had resisted, he would probably been taken out.
Right.
So Dr. Jolly West is head psychiatrist, head of the psychiatric department at UCLA.
Yes, and he worked with Reagan back in the time when Reagan was governor, and they were working on the prison population there in California, working with the mind control experiments on the prisoners.
So do you feel like you know Jolly West real well? I mean, what kind of treatment would he give you?
Oh, I was, usually it was his staff that I reported to, but they would drug me and do all kinds of electroshock, light and sound therapies, things where they actually put electrode caps on my head and did very sophisticated programming that I don't understand the technology behind it, but that's what they did.
So what about military bases? Did you ever receive any treatments at military bases?
I was taken to military bases all over the country at different stages of my programming and was subjected to all kinds of equipment there, deprivation tanks, sensory deprivation tanks, spin chambers, light and sound technologies that they used, virtual reality where they were using electroshock and drugs and hypnotic technique. I mean, it was just endless.
Now, when you mentioned the presidents a few moments ago, are you saying that you had sex with all these presidents?
Yes.
What about Jimmy Carter?
I never had sex with Jimmy Carter.
How about homosexual sex with somebody at the White House?
What, Jimmy Carter?
No. I mean with another woman.
Oh, yes, I did.
Did they program you to have sex with other women?
Yes.
You want to name those names?
No. I don't. This is the worst thing. I don't. No.
Okay. All right. Very good. Why are you laughing?
I hate it. It's embarrassing. It's just
I'm sorry
terrible.
if I embarrassed you.
No, I mean, it's just really awful. Anyway.
Well, no, you're programmed. It's not your fault.
I know.
I know, it's not your fault. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry I asked
That's
you
okay,
a
that's
question.
okay. No,
Okay.
that's all right.
Okay, well, anything else you want to add?
Just that George Bush, that Kelly, my daughter Kelly, was used as a presidential model sex slave for George Bush at the same time I was used when Reagan was president. And she was only like 2.5, 3 years old when that started with Bush, and that, you know, right now she's in a group home because she's so severely disturbed from all the programming. Kelly.
My sexual experience with Bill Clinton was extremely limited, in spite of the fact that I was a sex slave. It was my experience that Bill Clinton is bisexual, leaning far more towards a homosexual end. All I've ever seen him involved in was the homosexual activity, with very limited experience with him myself. Whereas my experience was much more prevalent with Hillary Clinton, because Hillary is also bisexual, leaning more towards a homosexual end, and it was she who accessed my sex programming to fulfill her perversions.
What has happened in the last 240 or 50 years, and that is this, that in 1773, Adam Weishaupt, a Bavarian, former priest, was commissioned to obtain or come up with with goals to take over the world. And on May the 1st, 1776, he announced the 25 goals. The goals are unbelievable if you look at them one by one and then analyze what's happened today. Corrupt the youth through sex and drugs, control the press, create an incident, and then come in and act as the saviors, like the Reichstag, and we saw this in Oklahoma City. So then, not only did I, of course, research the Illuminati and come up with the answer there, but these people kept calling me from around the country. They've been calling me now for 22 years. And based on the information that's been furnished to me, this evil element has infiltrated virtually every level of society. Okay? It's in the government. They've gone out of their way, of course, to infiltrate in city, county, state, and the federal government. It's in the banking system, it's in the courts, it's in the prosecutors, the attorneys, the doctors. It's mind-boggling, it's unbelievable. I've been asked how many, by the way, this dovetails, the satanic cult movement dovetails into, as part of the Illuminati, dovetails into drugs, prostitution, homosexuality, the whole 9 yards. And I've been asked on a number of occasions, how many are there in the United States? Just say walking the streets. And I say that there's close to 4 million, if not 4 million, practicing Satanists in America today. That's 1.5% of the population.
Adam George Weishaupt was the son of a rabbi in Bavaria. George Weishaupt. Weishaupt later abandoned the Jewish faith and adopted rationalism and philosophies of enlightenment. He also came to despise all religion and considered himself to be a liberator of the human consciousness and of the dogmas and religions that enslaved man. Adam Weishaupt truly became an enemy to all religion. Adam Weishaupt came up with a plan to take over the world through the abolition of all religions and governments. He formed a secret society which he dubbed the Illuminati, and it had thousands of members ranging from bankers to barons to Freemasons. He received lots of fundings through members of the Rothschild family, which helped in the creation of Illuminati lodges throughout Germany, France, Austria, Italy, Switzerland, and Russia. His order of the Illuminati officially cooperated with and infiltrated Freemasonry, and a marriage between the two orders took place at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad in 1782. Although the Illuminati had already been in control for many, many years before that. Weishaupt traveled through France in 1773, where he made a friendship with the Marquis de Lafayette, a general in the American Revolution and a personal friend of Benjamin Franklin. In 1773, that same year, Adam Weishaupt gave command for the secret society, the Sons of Liberty in America, to establish the Boston Tea Party, the protests which led to the American Revolution and subsequent Declaration of Independence. In 1784, the Bavarian government conducted raids on Illuminati member homes, and the government began rooting out members of the Illuminati, causing Weishaupt to flee Bavaria and maintain written correspondence with leaders of the order. Little is known to the public about Adam Weishaupt's true whereabouts after 1784. However, the truth is that Adam George Weishaupt traveled to the United States of America and assumed a new name, George Washington. And in 1789, Adam George Weishaupt became the first president of the newly formed United States of America. It is the image of Weishaupt which is displayed on the US dollar. Weishaupt is a German name which means in English, white head. And it is precisely that reason that the national bird of the United States of America is the American bald eagle. Because the American eagle has a white head, and it is a reference to the true founder and creator of America, Adam Weishaupt. Another symbol which is associated with Adam Weishaupt and his Illuminati is the owl of Minerva, the bird of wisdom. This was the official symbol which he used for the order of the Illuminati. Minerva was a Roman goddess, corresponding to the Greek goddess Athena. We find the symbol of the owl hidden within the US dollar. We find it at the private club where the elite and world leaders gather and perform rituals together. We find a giant statue at Bohemian Grove in the image of an owl, in which world leaders, all dressed in strange robes, perform a ritual burning and sacrifice called the cremation of care.
I'm Alex Jones, and I'm a radio and television host based in Austin, Texas. And for many years, I've been exposing the criminal activities of the global elite, also known as the New World Order. But time and time again in my research, I come, well, eye to eye with something that's even hard for me to believe. And that's that the elite, again, the so-called establishment kings, those that know best, the visions of the anointed ones, are obsessed with the occult. From presidents to governors to the heads of industry. We've all seen the stories of presidents and first ladies obsessed with their astrologers making national policy decisions upon their recommendations. Spiritual guides, shamans in the White House. My friends, it gets far worse than that. You see, for over 120 plus years in Northern California, in Sonoma County, on a 2,700-acre secluded redwood grove, leaders from around the world, prime ministers, chancellors, presidents, governors, again, the heads of industry, banking, academia, the media, Hollywood, only a select few, a little over 2,000 people, traveled there to engage in bizarre, ancient Canaanite, Luciferian, Babylon mystery religion ceremonies. And I successfully infiltrated through the Secret Service, through the guards, through the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. We were inside 4 hours. That's only one day out of the 2 weeks that they meet there for the admitted Summer Fire Festival of the Bohemian Club.
Great owl of Bohemia, we thank thee for thy azure